Flight 9 has finally arrived. Was Starship Block 2 redeemed by Ship 35 and Booster 14-2? How did the flight go? You'll get the most detailed breakdown here. That's another Block 2 test in the books, and the outlook now will shift towards Flight 10. How long will it be? My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. We are officially past Flight 9. Everything has led up to this moment for months now, and Ship 35 and Booster 14-2 have performed their test flight. And it's not been an easy road getting here, not in the slightest. Ship 35 recently finished its latest in a series of engine tests, and even this time there still was an abort before a successful spin prime test on May 22nd. We just can't catch a break. Nothing ever seems to come easy for Ship 35. After the test, the ship rolled back to the production site the next morning for final checkouts before a trip to the pad. The lead up to Flight 9 has been exciting to say the least. After Flights 7 and 8 ended in explosions, the FAA isn't taking any chances with Starship Flight 9. Ahead of the launch, they've expanded the size of the airspace hazard zone to nearly double what it was for Flight 8, from about 885 to 1600 nautical miles. That new buffer now stretches from Starbase, Texas, all the way through the Straits of Florida, passing over the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. The FAA has also asked SpaceX to launch during low traffic windows, which is another sign of just how broad the ripple effects of this program are becoming. This isn't even taking into account the NOTAM for the area near India and French Guiana. SpaceX has basically closed off half the globe for this flight. The size of the hazard areas tells us they are being cautious. Back at Starbase, in the last few days, we've seen final preparations for Ship 35's PES dispenser and the loading of the dummy Starlink satellites. This is a critical milestone for this flight, which SpaceX has been trying to test for a long time. Does the PES dispenser work? Is Starship ready for regular payload deployments? Flight 8 also underwent the same preparations, as 4 Starlink V3 dummy sets were loaded into the PES dispenser of Ship 34 as well. Unfortunately, it didn't make it far enough downrange to be able to deploy them. They perished with the rud. May they rest in pieces. Starship's payload capabilities are one of its most exciting features. Currently, a Falcon 9 rocket can carry around 23 Starlink satellites to space in one mission. With Starship, that increases to over 54. That doesn't sound too much. What is way more important is the added data throughput capacity per launch. That's what you actually use as a customer. On Falcon 9 and V2 mini satellites, it is roughly 3 terabits per second. Not bad. Now here comes the critical number. On a single Starship launch with its 54 Starlink V3 satellites, it will be 60 terabits per launch added to the constellation. That is 20 times the capacity per launch. So yes, it is critical that SpaceX gets to test a deployment at some point, and preferably sooner rather than later. With very little left on the pre-launch checklist, SpaceX rolled out Ship 35 and Booster 14-2 to the pad over the weekend. Road closures were set for 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. overnight on May 24th to the 25th, and then again during the day on May 26th. We also said goodbye to an old friend. We've been showing you updates of the slow, painful death of the high bay as SpaceX prepares the production site for the forthcoming Gigabay, and on Saturday morning, SpaceX finally pushed one of the last remaining pieces of the structure over. And it was over. The high bay has been home to many Starship and booster prototypes for the last few years, and was a key point of interest for the spaceflight community during the suborbital campaign days. But all good things must come to an end, and SpaceX needs bigger and better hangars to store more and more ship and booster prototypes as they continue to ramp up Starship production and testing. The high bay became obsolete very quickly. Before we get to Flight 9, let's talk about Flight 8 again. SpaceX released its final report, and what's in there was very important to know before Flight 9. The launch itself was a thing of beauty. All 33 Raptor engines on the Super Heavy booster ignited perfectly and completed a full duration burn during ascent. Hot staging worked precisely as planned, Starship lit up all 6 engines and pushed free from the booster, continuing on its way to space. So far, so good. Booster 15-1 then began its return journey. It relit 11 of its 13 planned engines for the boost back burn and headed home. Once near the pad, it managed to relight 12 out of 13 engines for landing, including one that had failed to ignite earlier. Then came the moment of truth. The 3 center Raptors continued firing, guiding the booster right into Mechazilla's arms. It was a clean catch to make SpaceX 3 for 3 at catching super heavy boosters with Mechazilla, but not everything went smoothly. SpaceX later revealed the likely reason some engines failed to relight: torch igniter issues caused by intense heat around the igniters. In other words, some engines got too hot during re-entry for the startup sequence to work. SpaceX was able to replicate this issue on the ground and is now insulating those areas better for future flights, i.e. Flight 9. The torch igniters are exactly what they sound like. Small torches inside the engines are responsible for igniting them. Then there was the upper stage. Oh yeah. There was the upper stage. Our beloved ill-fated Ship 34. I quote, "Approximately 5.5 minutes into its ascent burn, a flash was observed in the aft section of the vehicle near one of the center Raptor sea level engines, followed by an energetic event that resulted in the loss of the engine." Very energetic. That's SpaceX's official statement. This triggered a cascade of failures, and 2 more center engines and 1 vacuum engine shut down, which caused Starship to lose control. 2 minutes after the flash, telemetry was lost, which triggered the autonomous flight safety system, which is what it was supposed to do in such an event. Now here's what's important. Flight 8's failure looked similar to Flight 7's on the surface, but the root causes were totally different. Not Pogo related as some have reported. The issue on Flight 8 was hardware specific. A fault in one of the center Raptors led to unintended propellant mixing and ignition, which is what I presumed some time ago. That's why I never talked about Pogo. SpaceX has since conducted more than 100 long-duration Raptor tests at McGregor to chase it down, which was my main indicator for the engines being the problem, on top of failed static fires. And the fixes? They are adding preload to key engine joints, installing a new nitrogen purge system, and they've worked on improving the propellant drain system. So what's to be done? Looking ahead, Raptor 3 will come with even more reliability baked in from the start. Again, who is ready for Block 3? Me. That would definitely be me. And probably a lot of you. Meanwhile, the problems from Flight 7, oscillating harmonic resonance and attic flammability, did get solved. According to SpaceX, those fixes held up during Flight 8. Even though this one ended in failure, SpaceX did state that previous design improvements worked as intended. As much as Flight 7 and 8 looked like similar failures, they weren't at all. It wasn't a repeat of Flight 7. And Flight 8's debris stayed in bounds with no hazards, clearing the way for Flight 9. Just like SpaceX working together to fix Starship prototypes, let me say that creating Y episodes is a team effort. And even if you don't know it yet, you are very much a part of this team and can help me out easily. Our channel metrics show over 4 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help improve the channel and double check that you've hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with our updates. Like this video if you appreciate the content and become a Y supporter for extra content. Click the join button. Secure your access to up to 7 picture galleries per week, satellite, aerial and ground photos and 3D animations. Chat with me and gain more insights on the topic you love. Alright, important context done. Now let's tackle what you're likely here for, Flight 9. SpaceX launched Starship Flight 9 in spectacular fashion, and once again the world's most powerful rocket reminded us that nothing about this program is routine or even normal. We've said before that SpaceX tests rockets like children test paper planes. What's normal about that? And that's how we like it. From water landings to virtual towers, endless static fire campaigns and engine troubleshooting, this test flight brought a mix of triumph and turbulence. So what exactly happened? What worked, what didn't, and what does it tell us about where Starship is heading next? After one final stop at the production site, both Booster 14-2 and Ship 35 headed back to the pad for full stacking and the last preparations for Flight 9. By Tuesday morning, everything was reset. It was a new day at Starbase and a full stacked rocket was waiting for another shot at history. Ship 35 and Booster 14-2 stood tall on the orbital launch mount as the first signs of a stirring tank farm began to appear. We streamed it live again and an incredible number of you joined us. The fueling lines were chilled and Mechazilla hissed quietly as systems spun up and frost lines began crawling up the side of the fully stacked Starship's stainless steel skin. SpaceX confirmed what we all hoped was happening as planned: tanking was underway. Ship 35 was aiming for a water landing in the Indian Ocean, and if all went as planned, it would be the first time a Block 2 Starship had been cleared for a full re-entry attempt. Booster 14-2 meanwhile would not be aiming for the tower. SpaceX did make a few final notes on the plans to Booster 14-2 before the flight. Since they planned on expanding it in the Gulf anyway, instead of catching it with Mechazilla, they also decided to gather more data from a few unique maneuvers. They tweaked the descent profile for the booster on this flight. Instead of dropping straight in, it flew with a higher angle of attack, essentially gliding even more deliberately. That created extra drag from the atmosphere, which slowed the vehicle down and reduced the amount of propellant needed for the landing burn. But that is not even the only change. This time, one of the 3 center engines commonly used during final descent would be disabled on purpose. SpaceX wanted to see if a backup engine from the middle ring could handle part of the burn. After that handoff, the booster would finish with just 2 center engines firing. Also, the burn would be cut off early while the vehicle was still above the Gulf. The goal wasn't a gentle catch, it was a hard splashdown. And the data they get from this controlled failure would help refine future landings even more. With 3 minutes to launch, propellant load was completed. There were no hold calls, no warnings, just clean communications and fresh hope that Flight 9 would do what Flight 7 and 8 couldn't. Get far enough downrange to provide the engineers with a flight profile adequate to plan a ship catch. Finally. With Flights 7 and 8 both roughly ending their flights at the same place and time, SpaceX has not, to this point, had enough data to plan for even attempting a Mechazilla ship catch. That was one of many aims for Flight 9. After a few brief engine checkouts and ground support equipment issues were addressed, we were go for launch. As the final seconds ticked away, water gushed from the deluge system under the pad, we had ignition. All 33 Raptor engines roared to life in perfect sequence. After months of checkouts and intense testing, all of Booster 14-2's faithful Raptor engines ignited and pushed Flight 9 off the pad and into the history books as it became the first Super Heavy booster to be reflown. Nearly all of Pad A was engulfed in flames, dust and debris as 5,000 tons of steel, methane, oxygen and engineering began to rise from the Texas coast. And just like that, Starship Flight 9 was underway. Would it end like the others or push further and back into the realm of Block 1's success? Only time would tell, but the first part of the flight looked great. Wanna see me do exactly the opposite of what I did during the Flight 9 livestream? Let's relax for a sec. Getting enough sleep is essential for good health, cognitive functions, and overall well-being. Summer is coming and longer days are just around the corner. While this is a time to enjoy life, it can be detrimental to your sleeping schedule. Earlier sunrises and later sunsets interfere with the body's internal clock, causing problems with sleep onset, poor sleep quality, and fatigue during the day. Luckily, today's sponsor has the fix: Manta Sleep. Their cooling masks offer near blackout, no eye pressure, and unbeatable comfort. Pair it with the white noise machine or go for the mask with integrated speakers, block out the world and fall asleep faster. I have tried them, they work. The masks are made from high quality materials, they look and feel superior. All aspects of these Manta Sleep sleeping masks are refined and offer a good night's sleep, no matter if you prefer sleeping on your sides, your back, or your belly.
I think I'm just gonna occupy Mars later.
With eye cups designed to keep the mask off your eyelids, they always feel comfortable. Are you ready to snooze through those early sunrises? Get everything you need for deep sleep and total blackout as the days grow longer. Visit www.mantasleep.com and use code FELIX for a 10% discount. Alright, all calm and relaxed, let's go on with Flight 9. As always, the stack performed its signature pad drift, angling slightly away from the tower as it cleared the orbital launch mount. Starship is so incredibly massive that this is actually critical for it to get off the pad. Elon Musk has referred to it as the world's largest blowtorch, and it's easy to see why. The power from 33 simultaneously firing Raptor engines, more than twice that of the Apollo rockets, is hard to comprehend. Flight 9 barreled towards max Q, the point of maximum dynamic pressure, which came just after the 1 minute mark. it was able to push through it without issues. It's worth noting that nearly all of the Starship's 9 test flights have made it past this point, with the lone exception being Flight 1. Yeah, we don't talk about Flight 1. 90 seconds in, it was time for the juicy part of the flight. The outer 30 engines on booster 14-2 shut down, while only the 3 center Raptors remained active. The inner circle remained and they began to throttle back for the final push. Hot staging initiated with a flare as booster 14-2 detached from ship 35, sending it onward with encouragement further downrange as it began its descent back towards Starbase. It's safe to say that the entire spaceflight community held its breath at this point as we were nearing the troublesome spots from the previous 2 flights. Flames shot down into the booster's interstage and the ship pushed itself free. The booster's RCS thrusters fired, flipping the stage around for its return. This maneuver worked exactly as planned. And with the ship on its way to orbit, booster 14-2 began its next test. Simulate a tower catch without the tower with a harder than usual landing. Imagine reading that as your next task description. Booster 14-2 arced back toward the Gulf the second time it had traveled this path, with the first being on Flight 7 with the ill-fated Ship 33. Shaking off those memories, it headed to its new destination. However, booster 14-2 never got to the intended splashdown point. As it rapidly plummeted towards the calm Gulf waters, an unspecified issue arose and resulted in a premature rud. On the SpaceX stream, a brief glimpse of the spectacular fireball was visible for those watching. Some people were lucky enough to film it from the beach. Here's the footage. This was planned though. The aggressive landing profile was supposed to test the limits. The planned engine tests for 14-2 during the descent were more aggressive than normal. So now SpaceX has new data to analyze over the results of the flight. May it rest in pieces. Part 1 of Flight 9 still delivered what SpaceX was after. More booster data to refine future landings and push toward Block 3. Booster 14 ended its existence to test the limits. Meanwhile, back in space, Ship 35 was nearing its own reckoning. On the livestream, we all held our breath. It seamlessly passed the point where its 2 predecessors, 34 and 33, had failed. The vehicle continued its victorious arc across the planet, where the calm waters of the Indian Ocean and its target awaited. It's fair to wonder if curious eyes in the Caribbean looked up at this point, expecting to see a third shower of burning metal put on a spectacular display. Nope, it wasn't meant to be. With a successful Ascent burn now in the rearview mirror and 6 fully functioning Raptor engines pushing it forward, Ship 35 headed towards another important milestone that SpaceX has needed data for some time. Payload deployment. At T+8 minutes and 43 seconds, SpaceX started the sequenced ship engine cutoff. First the outer vacuum engines and then the center sea level Raptors. All 6 Raptors successfully shut down. Yes! Woo! As soon as this happened though, a slight rotation was introduced on the ship. You can see it in the stream at around T+9 minutes and 20 seconds. At T+9 minutes and 30 seconds, SpaceX showed one of the forward flap cameras and you can see a lot of venting go on. If we jump back to around T+9 minutes and 5 seconds again, you can see that this venting emanates from the engine bay. It's hard to tell from where this comes from, but my speculation right now would be that this might even be an engine valve not completely shutting down. Interstellar Gateway released an image on X showing the ship presumably after the engine cutoff. If this is really from after the engine cutoff, it tells a story. That is a lot of venting. Did this come from an engine? Let me know your best guesses in the comments below. If we speed the footage up after the T+10 minute mark, you can see the roll getting stronger and stronger as well, with the venting from the engine bay continuing. At T+12 minutes and 5 seconds, SpaceX switched to another great outside view, and since the ship was still in daylight, you can see this white stuff fly away on the right side. That is propellant. Either oxidizer or fuel, but that is not normal RCS behavior. That's more than what you'd like to see. At the T+12 minutes and 55 seconds mark, this venting seems to be getting less. This could mean 3 things. Either we can't see it anymore as there is not enough sunlight anymore, or SpaceX was able to shut the vent down, or the tanks were empty. There is still some venting visible, but considerably less than before. This is backed up by a short outside view visible at T plus 14 minutes and 54 seconds. The rotation seemed to have stopped largely. Ship 35 was carrying several dummy Starlink satellites, and finally a ship got to the point where they could be released. Would SpaceX obtain the valuable data they need to plan deployment of their eventual V3 Starlink constellation? Well, almost. At the T plus 15 minutes and 5 seconds mark, SpaceX treated us with a spectacular view of the inside of the payload bay. The Pez dispenser is visible with 8 Starlink dummy satellites loaded in. What's also visible is a lot of white stuff floating around. That's ice. Likely ice that doesn't belong there. This might be related to some sort of leak inside the bay. But that is another speculation, very hard to say without an official statement. At the point of deployment, the payload dispenser door failed to actuate all the way, so the milestone wasn't successful. So close, yet so far once again for a Block 2 prototype. After this, things didn't get a lot better for Ship 35. Footage of what appeared to be a leak within the ship itself showed, and an attitude control error resulted in bypassing the engine relight. The ship began to drift into another dreaded loop. It started to spin again. This prevented the ship from getting into the intended position for re-entry, and then it went through an automated saving process to vent the remaining fuel. The camera views from the SpaceX stream showed us the brilliant colors of plasma racing by the flaps as the ship began a wild descent into the atmosphere. Ultimately, it experienced a third consecutive rud about 46 minutes into the flight, short of its targeted destination. All of the debris fell into the Indian Ocean along the pre-planned debris corridor. It is finished. We have another Block 2 flight in the books, and SpaceX engineers are surely already scanning over valuable new flight data they have obtained. It is not the result many have hoped for, but it is an improvement over the previous 2 flights. SpaceX is breaking ground on, and sometimes with this rocket, pun intended. Something like Starship has never been built, even if it might look like just another rocket. There are plenty of milestones to be checked off in the next few months alone, all of which are important on their own and needed to reach the goal. A rapidly and fully reusable super heavy lift rocket ready to open up space for humanity as no other rocket has ever done before. Damn, I'm excited. What will come next for Starship? Now that the path seems clear, what will SpaceX do from here on? Are ships 36, 37 and 38 furiously jotting down notes to relay to the engine techs? Do they know how to make Block 2 work? Finally! Elon Musk updated on X after the flight that no heat tiles were lost during the descent and that leaks in the main tank were to blame for the premature ending. Where exactly, he didn't tell. Interestingly, he noted that the next 3 flights will be at a much faster cadence, with one every 3 to 4 weeks. Oh, I'm looking forward. Does that mean the issues that befell Flight 9 are already known? Solvable? Are ships 36, 37 and 38 shaking in the Mega Bay at this news? While Musk didn't clarify how much time until Flight 10, it sounds like the pace is about to increase. That's it for today. Before watching the bloopers, remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us out for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A new Raptor design and our Flight 9 shirt are both up. Link is in the description and in the card you should see now. Also, check out our print store at shop.whataboutit.space to buy a picture for your favorite wall. A significant amount of every purchase goes directly to our photographer Jordan, and if you want to learn about SpaceX's Raptor engine and how it is completely revolutionizing spaceflight, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again on the next episode. Ship 34 and 33. Nitrogen. Throughput capacity. Yeah.